Welcome to Films and Stuff with your hosts, Pete Mitchell and Ethan Hunt.
Pete, welcome back. Saturday morning, Films and Stuff. It's time for the weekly stream or skip episode.
That's right, Ethan. And for everyone tuning in, just a quick recap. Ethan has made a list of shows he wants me to watch. I have made a list of shows I want him to watch. And the whole point is that we randomly select a show from that list. We watch 2 to 3 episodes max, and then we give you a quick fire review to determine whether it's a show that you should either be subscribing to, mooching somebody's password for, or skipping altogether. It allows us to kind of filter out a bunch of, good shows or nonsense shows on the multitude of streaming platforms that are available to us now.
Yeah, and if you've been following us for the past few weeks, you know that we're riding a hot streak at the blackjack table. Pete has had, I think, 3 out of the last 4 were must subscribes, and I think I've had 1 and almost 2 out of the last 3 or 4 as well. So both of us are riding a hot hand right now. Let's see if we can keep it going, right?
Let's see. So I had to watch Better Than Us.
Okay.
This week. I'll kick it off.
Netflix.
It is a Netflix program. And it's an old show. I think it came out in 2018, if I remember correctly. It is yet once again another foreign language program.
Oh, no.
It's a Russian program, but it's heavily sci-fi based. Okay. And so it's on the path to what we would describe as a dystopian feature, but not quite. Mm-hmm. So, you've got androids who are there, who are acting as kind of like caretakers and servers for people. Phones that have been implanted into your arm, like with screens that pop up, kind of like you would see in a Marvel movie or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
You've got these giant holographic TV screens all over advertising and including like news reports out in the middle of the city. That kind of thing. So that's what I mean by near dystopian, but not quite. And it's near future. Mm-hmm. Premise is super kind of weird and kind of disjointed. The protagonist of the story is a coroner at a morgue. You learn very quickly that he's been divorced. His wife is living, or his ex-wife rather, is living with her current boyfriend, and they're planning on moving to Australia and taking their kids with them, but she hasn't told her husband or her ex-husband. So there's some conflict there. And of course, older boy, younger daughter. The younger daughter idolizes her father. The older boy hates his father. This very stereotypical cliched dynamic of a broken family with the children.
Yes.
And then you have, as the antagonist to the series, you have an evil corporation. And this corporation makes robots. It makes androids. And they're basically getting into this line of androids, which are basically like sex androids or sex robots, right?
All right.
That kind of thing. So there's a lot of controversy as to, or what I gathered was controversy as to, what qualifies as love, what qualifies as sex, who can do it, that kind of thing. Then we see that the company actually doesn't have the capability of making really high quality ones. So what they've done is they've illegally imported an android from...
So they're making low quality sex robots.
They're making androids in general, and they're branching into that field. And what they've done is they've imported illegally from another country. I think they say China, but I don't think it's fully otherwise mentioned. And this is supposed to be like the next gen of androids. Like if you didn't know that was an android, you wouldn't be able to tell. Like she looks like a human. Of course, she's played by
Westworld.
Very much like Westworld. Very next level, very advanced. But the reason that this android was banned and the reason this android stopped production in the other countries is because she doesn't obey Asimov's 3 laws. So she's able to kill. When she escapes from the evil corporation's headquarters, she ends up killing a guy. She's, so now there's an android out running in the city who's able to kill. So, they don't want to have uproar about as to, public safety, blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, this android latches on to the little girl from the coroner's daughter. And somehow the coroner's daughter becomes the primary user of that android. And so she becomes latched to her. That's kind of basically where I stopped it. I think that was 2 or maybe 3 episodes in.
Maybe you've seen this movie when it was about a killer whale called Free Willy.
Free Willy, exactly.
Or maybe a robot called Real Steel. Or maybe an alien called E.T.
Or even Short Circuit, if I remember correctly.
Or even Short Circuit.
So it's all very cliched.
Oh,
it's
man.
A very
that
generic
is a great
premise.
movie we should review again. Short Circuit.
So it's super generic premise. And it's not bad. Oh, and then of course I forgot the coroner's older son has joined an anti-robot resistance. And, they're killing robots. They're destroying robots. And accidentally one of the kids kills a man while he's trying to destroy robots. He kills a human being. So the most stereotypical and the most cliched of premises you can probably think of. So on that basis, I cannot in good conscience call this a subscribe. I don't want to say it's a skip either because it's not bad. Of course, it is in Russian language, so I had subtitles on. The effects are pretty decent for a TV show, the visual effects and so forth. I mean, the android effects are pretty nonsense because obviously they've got humans pretending to be androids, which is fine. But, like the implanted phones, the holograms, all that kind of stuff, not terrible. We've seen better, but we've certainly seen much worse as well.
All right.
If you're looking for something that you kind of just want to keep on in the background, if you're okay with dubs and if you can understand Russian, it's fine. But it's nothing to write home about. So for me, at best, it's a mooch. I mean, I say it's a mooch, but will I ever watch it again? Probably not.
Yeah.
But it's not bad enough that I would say, no, you shouldn't skip it. You should skip it either.
Okay, fair enough. Pete, you got me thinking, though, with your reference to Short Circuit. I feel like we should have an episode that's dedicated to, 1984, 1986. We could do Two Men and a Baby, Short Circuit, all those. God.
Or, what else we could do is we can have a classic movie of the week or a classic movie of the month.
Oh, yeah.
Review.
We should go back. We should go back and, watch an old movie and, re-rate it. Is this still watchable? Or is it
because we talk about this ad nauseum with Star Trek, right? Or with Star Wars. All these shows that we love, we're just like, does it hold up? The question always is, does this hold up? I think you and I have agreed that Star Wars as a premise probably does hold up. Some of the other movies don't. Like some Star Trek movies I don't think hold up, but conceptually they do. So I think that's not a bad idea where we kind of look at the movies that we saw when we were in our, early teens, while we were still in middle school, high school, maybe college years at the latest. And we can kind of go back and say, hey, I loved old school hilarious comedies like Major League. Does that still hold up today? Right?
It does.
What year do
you think Short Circuit came out?
90. I'm going to guess 90.
Oh man.
86.
Oh
my God.
And it was, this was at the height of Steve Guttenberg's career because he had Short Circuit in
Police Academy,
and he had Three Men and a Baby then in 1987.
Yeah. When did he do Police Academy?
Oh man, there were a number of police academies.
There was 7 or 8. And I'll tell you one thing right now. Police Academy does not hold up according to today's standards. Hilarious back in the day.
1984.
So yeah, maybe that's something we should think about. If you guys have any suggestions as to what movies we should revisit, because I am quite serious about this, why don't you leave a comment below or send us an email, aloha@filmsandstuffpodcast.com, or send us a tweet at FNS Podcast. Yeah, just shoot out a year, shoot out a movie. Tell us what movie you really loved as a kid. Does it still hold up or not? We'll go through it today and watch it. All right, so Better Than Us, it's a mooch at best. It'll probably be a skip for a lot of you, but I can't give it that because on average, it's not bad. It's just not for me. It's just a bit cliched. But again, that doesn't necessarily make it a bad thing.
You've given a very passionate defense. My assignment from you this week was a show on Netflix called A Model Family. And it is a Korean drama.
Oh, okay.
It is dubbed in English, and I have to say the dubbing is pretty good. You know, sometimes you get a dubbing and they use like some folks from like Texas or New Jersey, and the accents are way off. Here, I feel like they got I don't know how to say this in a nice way, like an Asian or a Korean who actually dubs it in English, but obviously they have a little bit of an accent, so it sounds like a little bit more realistic and believable watching, Korean people speak. If you wanted to call this another show, you could call it South Korean Ozark. Or you could even call it South Korean Breaking Bad.
Ooh.
Where it is about a family, husband, wife. The wife is very fiery. The husband is a very quiet professor. They have 2 kids. They have the very bratty female teen, and they have the very sympathetic young boy who has a medical condition. He has a heart problem. So they've kind of put in all the tropes already in terms of, just the family dynamics. The family is not doing particularly well financially or emotionally. The husband is under a lot of pressure to support the family, and he's not particularly successful as a low-level, university professor. And without giving away too much, he becomes, through a series of coincidences, involved in a Korean gang / drug cartel. And there's a lot of kind of coincidences in terms of how he gets involved, and also like his wife's involvement, and also the police undercover team that is doing the stakeout, how they've got some conflicts as well. So there's a lot of interconnectivity. I watched 4 episodes. And with a lot of the different Korean dramas we saw, it's exceptionally well planned and executed and acted. I've given it a mooch. If someone were to give it a must subscribe, I wouldn't object too hard. If someone gave it a skip, I'd probably put up a small defense of the show, but I think it's really in the eyes of the beholder. The one thing that holds this back a little bit, and when I mentioned Ozark and I mentioned Breaking Bad, both of those have at least a little bit of comedy in them. Not like ha ha ha, laugh out loud jokes, but some kind of
like a dark humor element. Yeah.
A dark humor, or occasionally something that just makes you chuckle. This does not have anything that approaches comedy at all. Nothing whatsoever. Maybe that's a translation issue, but there's no comedy at all. It's straight down the middle, drama, dramatic dialogue. The one problem I kind of have with this show is that they really make the father, right, who would be Jason Bateman or Heisenberg in Breaking Bad, they really dumb him down at the beginning. I mean, like, he is so clueless, or they portray him as so clueless, for the example, that he is going online and doing a search for how do you launder money. He is using his phone to call in anonymous tips, and then hangs up when they ask, well, what is your name and how are you making this tip? You and I are not mastermind criminals, but just kind of the basics that someone who's 40 years old or so should kind of know in a modern society, that you should not Google such a thing, right? You should not use your own phone to try to give, an anonymous tip. Obviously, those things are going to end badly for you. So I feel like they've a little bit of the disbelief, I think, is that they've really made a character who is, entirely clueless on just kind of like some of the basics of how to, manage your life. And that's been a little bit of a turnoff. Apart from that, to be honest, it's a pretty compelling story.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
This guy, this protagonist, or I
Yes.
mean, I guess he could be an antagonist depending on your viewpoint. But so when we spoke about Breaking Bad, we always talked about how Walter White was compelling and that he was forced into this.
Yes.
It wasn't a situation. I mean, you said that it was by coincidence that he's fallen into this, but it was also in Walter White's case, he got cancer, and this was for him, the path of least resistance to get out of his family's trouble. Is that something similar here?
Absolutely right. So just like Jason Bateman in Ozark, right? He had the gun to his head. His family their lives were at risk because his business partner was apparently, unbeknownst to him, stealing from the mob, right?
Yeah.
In a model family, there are coincidences that bring him to this point, but he intentionally steps over the line, and it all goes back to, again, his son who needs a heart transplant, who's got a lot of, healthcare problems. They've got high bills as a family. He's not making a lot of money as he seems to be like an untenured professor or at a small university or something. It's all those factors that they really highlight at the beginning to justify why this dude, and they make a point of it. Like the police are like, this guy doesn't even have ever a traffic ticket. Like there's got to be a mistake. This guy doesn't even have a traffic ticket. We've never met a guy who doesn't even have a traffic ticket, right? There's got to be some mix-up here. And they do a very good job of showing him as this very, very decent, a little bit simple, but honest person who comes into an opportunity and he kind of decides, look, I'm going to take it for these reasons. That's how he justifies it.
Okay.
So it's solid. It's not something, again, I mean, I've already compared it to two shows. It's not something we haven't seen before. And I imagine that as this goes on, we're going to see the same kind of transformation we saw with Jason Bateman, the same thing that we saw with Walter White. They start as very naive and simple, and a couple seasons in, they're slashing throats and, they're a mastermind, and they pick it up pretty fast, and now they're, kind of like a crime boss, right?
Right.
So I think that's where this is going. Very solid on Netflix. Kind of what you expect from Netflix. A little bit of something for everybody. I mean, it is a Korean drama, so I think it's going to appeal primarily to, Korean speakers. But again, it's dubbed in a pretty good way. So if you wanted to watch it, it would definitely not be a waste of time. I think it's a solid mooch.
Brilliant. So it's going on my list immediately.
That's right. We got a lot to watch. Shall we roll our virtual die and see what we get for next week?
Perfect. So I think you jumped the gun a little bit.
Jump the gun.
But instead, in lieu of rolling the die for you for next week, because coincidentally enough, you sent me a message last night or maybe 2 nights ago suggesting I watch a specific show. And I said, hey, it's already on your list. And oh my God, I see you've already given it a rating, which is even more funny.
I'm working ahead.
You are working ahead, and I like it. So I'm very much looking forward to next week's episode. You're supposed to watch, but you've already jumped the gun.
Yes.
Yellow Jackets on Hulu.
Yellow Jackets. Yes. It's actually a Showtime show, but it appears
distributed by Hulu.
Distributed on Hulu. And I will say no more, but I'm excited to give you an update next week.
Great. And I will be watching for next week a show on Netflix called Pieces of Her.
Last week we had this discussion where, I asked you what you thought of these titles.
Yeah.
I had a model family. We said, okay, we probably think that means that they look like a perfect family, but they've got a lot of drama on the inside. And that was pretty on the nose in this case. And Better Than Us, we said this could be about anything. And it kind of captures, I guess, androids and sex bots and stuff like that. What do you think of Yellow Jackets as a name? I think that's solid.
Solid because, my first instinct is like, bees or wasps or hornets.
Yeah.
Right? Obviously.
Mhm.
But it's not generic enough that I would think it's about animals. In fact, I
Yeah.
go the other way to say that Yellow Jackets probably means there's something to do with something aggressive happens in this show.
Oh, I like where your mind is going with that.
Right?
Well done.
Because I feel like hornets are very aggressive animals. I feel like that's the way it's going to be. I don't know anything about it, but I know that you've already rated it well. So we're going to talk about it next week. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to watch it this week so that we can have a more, let's say, informed discussion about it.
I have to say, the nice thing about Yellow Jackets is I don't think there's any confusing that with another show. If you told me to watch Better Than Us, I could easily forget exactly what that show was.
Yeah.
Right? Yellow Jackets, first of all, there's not a lot of shows with yellow. Yellow Jackets, I think, is very, very unique. Mm-hmm. So I like that. What do you think of Pieces of Her?
Frankly speaking, it sounds like a romance novel.
Yeah.
It sounds like it. I don't know.
Or someone who chops up, abducts women and chops them up, right?
Yeah, so that could be like the really dark take on it. Absolutely. I just don't see it only because it's Netflix.
Yeah, I agree. It's almost too dark of a title, like it would not be possible to do something like that, but I agree. It
like
seems
if there was Pieces of Her on HBO Max, I'd think twice. On a platform like Netflix, and that's not to say like Netflix doesn't have gory or like dark stuff, but I feel like Netflix is also... Their MO is how do we appeal to the most number of people as possible.
I agree.
They're definitely not a niche brand in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I agree. This sounds like a romance to me. It sounds like maybe a mystery to me. Or it sounds like if it was a sci-fi, I would think that it would be something like, I don't know, someone got like a brain transplant or like their brain was in a different body or something like that where...
I mean, we've joked about this ad nauseum, but honestly, if you told me this was Pieces of Her, I also wouldn't be surprised if this were like a winter Hallmark movie about a woman who's in a terrible car accident, who's learning to walk again, and then she falls in love with her nurse, who happens to be this guy from the big city who's come back.
I think we should just have our own episode called Pete and Ethan Make Up Hallmark Movies, because I like where you went with that one, but I think the even better one is that there's something like his wife dies and like another lady dies at the same time.
And she gets the organ.
Yes.
It was already done. That's already been done. I believe it was David Duchovny and Minnie Driver, I think. So Minnie Driver needs a heart transplant. David Duchovny's wife dies, gets her heart. Then they fall in love with each other, and then he finds out that she was the recipient of his wife's heart. And
dude, I'm gonna cry. No, I'm gonna cry right now.
It's been done, and it's been done by Hollywood.
That's too much. Honestly, I'm gonna lose it.
Wait. I have to look this up because
I would absolutely cry. I would absolutely cry at that movie. I would cry until I was dehydrated. No, I will. I'm gonna have to take Gatorade in advance. I will cry until I'm dehydrated for that one. I have to look this up.
It is so funny that you're saying that.
David Duchovny and Minnie Driver. I feel like those people have never even met each other. They're so random.
Yeah, I think it was Minnie Driver. It could be. I could have sworn it was her, but I'm not 100% sure. Return to Me. Yep, 100% Minnie Driver and David Duchovny. Return to Me.
So his wife dies.
Yep.
And the wife's heart goes to Minnie Driver. No one by the way, Minnie Driver, I can see her playing that role exceptionally well, right? I'm not sure about David Duchovny, but I feel like Minnie Driver would own that role.
Yep. This was
sad
the classic 90s era romance rom-com kind of thing.
Yeah.
This was it. Although it came out in 2000. But yes.
Face off to a new level. Okay, so stay tuned next week, stream or skip. Pete is going to tell us about Pieces of Her, and one way or another. Let's see what that's all about.
And Yellow Jacket.
And Yellow Jackets. And I'm going to hold my tongue until next week, and then get ready. I'm going to unload. I'm absolutely ready right now.
Perfect. All right. Once again, our appeal to you, if you've got any shows you want us to discuss or do a mini quickfire review on, leave a comment on the video below or send us a tweet at F&S Podcast. Or if you want to go more old school, email us aloha at filmsandstuffpodcast.com. Let us know what movie or TV series you want us to have a look at because you don't want to spend the time to go through it.
We are loving the old school emails, but we will gladly take a tweet.
All
Okay,
right.
Pete, that wraps it up for this episode of Stream or Skip, brought to you by Films and Stuff. We will catch you next week. We're already looking forward to it.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Ethan.
Have a great day. Bye now.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Films and Stuff. If you haven't already, please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are downloaded. Films and Stuff. There is no substitute.